Hello everyone, Jim Eastwood, Global Sales Director at Travel Counsellors. Thank you so much for tuning in to hear about all things Travel Counsellors, whether that's becoming a TC or finding out how to join the support centre here in the Venus building in Manchester, or whether you want to find out about travel, if you want to get moving again as a leisure customer or a business client. We need to know what's happening in the travel industry. And even if you're just a business person who wants to find out about another business and what they're doing post-pandemic to make sure that they position themselves for future growth. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to be joined later in the show by one of our travel counsellors, so you get to hear from one of our franchisees flexibly working and growing their business even during the pandemic as well. Listen, as I speak to you at this time of year, we're just off the back of a peak period in travel. January traditionally is that peak period, and we were hopeful and cautiously optimistic that January 2022 would bring the same levels of success we've experienced over our 27 years history. We now have 2,000 travel counsellors across 6 markets globally, and about 1,500 of those TCs are in the UK. And let's take a look at what the group did in January. So when we think about our performance, we did over £70 million of new bookings in January. To put that in perspective, it was our second best month ever. People were booking from a leisure perspective to go to the US, the Middle East, the Med, the Caribbean and the Indian Ocean, and a lot of that travel was for Travel Now in January and February. In one single day, we did over £4 million in sales. Why that's significant is that marks one of our biggest sales days ever. We had multiple days over 3 and over £3.5 million. And most importantly, out of our network of, as I said, 2,000 franchisees, over 300 of those TCs had their biggest and best ever month in January. Some impressive stats, I'm sure you'll agree. But we're not stopping and patting ourselves in the back. We just want to set the scene and set the tone for what has been a resurgence of a really heavily affected industry. Travel in general has been restricted over the last 2 years. Life as we know it has been restricted. And I know it has cut across all industries, but travel has been at the very sharp end of that. So while we boast and talk about the resurgence, across the 2-year period, there has been multiple different episodes and periods in which we have bounced back. But it was short-lived, unfortunately. And refunds and rebookings and credit refund notes, all the things that you've all probably become familiar with, were prevalent over the last 2 years. However, this period of resurgence from January until present feels much more stable. There's much more confidence. People are learning to live with COVID, and hopefully we're entering into an endemic state. And it's important to mention at this time that the travel restrictions mirror that. The government announcements are less frequent and more positive, and people are moving more freely. And as we do that, we're joining more travel counsellors into the community. We're regrowing our business as well and have got multiple roles advertised to that effect as well. And when people join Travel Counsellors as a TC, we have a mantra that says we want to change their life for the better. Now that's a bold statement, but hopefully in Katie May, we have someone that has changed their lives for the better. Katie, are you there?
I am, Jim. Hi, nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. And you're working flexibly as one of our franchisees and joined literally not long before the pandemic, but you would have had reasons for joining then. What were they, Katie?
Well, they were to work flexibly, really. At the time, my son was at primary school. He was in year 5, I think. Yeah, must have been year 5. And, you know, I had a great job. I had part-time hours. I was well paid. It was in travel. And, you know, I was doing the school run a day a week, and I just felt that I was missing out. You know, I was only at school 1 day a week. Invariably, there were events at school that I couldn't attend. And I just wanted to be able to spend more family time while I could. You know, I was very aware that time was ticking on, and come the teenage years, I'm sure he wouldn't want to see he seemed dead with me. So I thought, while I still could, I would take that opportunity to work more flexibly around him and kind of have the best of both worlds, I guess.
And you've certainly had that, the best of both worlds, in a really strange and challenging period as well. So you had this career in travel, but you wanted the flexibility. You wanted to spend more time with 11-year-old Jack and see more of Phil, I'm sure, do those school runs, but also build a business and commit yourself to the profession that you love, and the profession that has rose in prominence because of the need for expertise and reassurance. Tell us about how you've been handling customers and clients over that pandemic period and the trust and goodwill that that has engendered going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I really love about Travel Counsellors is that personal relationship that we have with our customers. So obviously, in March, when kind of the borders to the world closed down, I have a lot of family guests, and so I had a lot of Easter departures ready to go. So really, for me, it was a case of keeping in touch with them. The Easter departures in a way were the easy ones, because they were a straightforward cancel and either rebook or refund depending on my guest's circumstances. But the difficult ones were the ones that were coming up. So the May departures, the ones for the summer, where people were very unsure, had lots of questions. So really, it just became really important to keep in touch with them and just to be very honest about the situation that we were in. Didn't always have the answers to the questions, but I would always do my best to go away and find out, or at least give an idea of timeframes and when we may know more. So that was really important to start with. And then as we sort of started to come out the other side last summer, what I found was that I was getting a lot of inquiries from people who hadn't used a travel agent before. Lots of people are saying to me, I've always booked independently, but I just feel at this time like I need somebody at the end of the phone who's going to answer all the questions and make sure that we don't make some big mistake on the testing or the paperwork or all the, this minefield of requirements that are, still in place, although it's much easier now, but there's still a lot of different requirements in place to be able to travel.
There is definitely increased complexity, and even though the restrictions have lessened and people are moving much more freely and booking much more vigorously than they had been in previous months, having that trusted travel expertise has always been the focus of travel counsellors. But as an individual TC whose income is dependent on customers travelling, providing that handheld support for people, providing that reassurance, and knowing that you still have a business that you want to grow and a lifestyle that you want to live, and that people want to get moving again, all of those factors come into play. And they have to be on your terms, right? You joined for flexibility. Have you been able to balance that complexity, provide that reassurance, but also provide some financial security for you and your family and spend time with those loved ones?
Yeah, absolutely. Like many others, I did have to take a job throughout the pandemic. For part of the pandemic, I was quite lucky in that I could take minimal hours, so it really didn't have too much of an impact on the business, and I was able to leave that job fairly early on. So that was great, and it just sort of gave enough to tide things over. But yeah, although I've been really busy, January's been not my busiest month, but my second busiest. It still is, inherently flexible. I'm still able to do school run each day. It's now the bus run instead of school. I have a horse, so I'm able to pop over in daylight hours, which is a real deal breaker for a lot of horse owners in winter, to be able to go in daylight hours and do the jobs over there, while simultaneously managing my business. I spend a lot of time hands-free, of course, chatting with my clients as I'm traveling around town doing those personal errands, and I'm able to keep in touch with my business at the same time.
Listen, in a truly flexible world, and with the increasing need for people to have work-life balance, being able to work on the go is so important, and that's the Travel Counsellor way. Being able to have access to the systems and support that you need, access to all the fares and the rates and the the massive buying power that we have and inventory that we have available to travel counsellors is to make sure that leisure customers and corporate clients get moving again. And as I said, many have got moving again, and you've done lots of weird and wonderful bookings. There's a combination, we feel, of pent-up demand of people wanting to get moving now, but also people wanting to tick things off the bucket list that was put on ice for the last 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the demand in the destinations I've been looking at have been a case of, I want to go soon, where can I go? So it may be that destinations have sort of come into play that might not otherwise have been considered because we can go there. But even for future travel, I'm finding that, families are much more open to being adventurous. And I'm finding that families who previously have just done, 1-2 weeks beach holiday, staying in one hotel, what I would call a fly and flop holiday, are now wanting to spread their wings and do something a little bit more adventurous and, going to places like Sri Lanka and Costa Rica, which are great destinations for families to kind of just sort of dip their toes in that kind of more adventurous style of travel. So it's really rewarding because, seeing the world is what travel's about, is why we do this job. So to be able to help families to see those, different parts of the world that they hadn't previously considered, but had always thought that they might like to, is just it's just the most rewarding part of the job. But it's also very difficult because it makes my list of places I want to go much, much longer as I'm sort of preparing all these amazing itineraries.
We live vicariously through our customers and clients, and maybe many of the listeners today as well. From a perspective of travel, experiencing the world and all that it has to offer and having true experiences, Instagram moments or whatever appeals to you, that was restricted. And when you could only go a few places, people went to those places. Iceland became really popular. The Caribbean was really popular. The Maldives continues to be massively popular as well. But as restrictions lift, people are getting back to booking again and getting back to all the destinations that we previously would have went to. But during the pandemic, people have continued to travel for corporate travel as well, essential business needs. I am one of those people as well that continue to travel and continue to need to travel. And I think it's important to mention that travel counsellors like Katie are a one-stop shop for all of your travel needs. But Katie, what I think people will find most interesting is you don't spend any money on advertising and marketing because that's not what you need to do as a travel counsellor. Tell us about how you build what is now a gold standard business.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a little bit of networking in the early days, so that's a bit of marketing spend, but my business, I would say probably 98% has been built out of referrals. It started small with one or two. They then referred me on to their, friends and family and contacts, and it's just grown from there. Every referral is like a little diamond. Really, it's absolutely where my business has grown from. As you say, I haven't spent a lot of money on marketing. I don't even do very much social media. I'm not very good at it, and it's somewhere I need to work on for the future. So it really has been just working with my guests, getting to know them, and asking them to please support my business by referring me on to their friends and family.
Listen, there's a massive entrepreneurial vibe that runs through probably all the people watching, everyone on LinkedIn, and certainly everyone across the UK and Ireland and beyond. It's the rise of the small to medium-sized enterprises. It's the rise of the home workers, the flexible workers, and the demand for people to be able to have more balance that is prominent and coming out of COVID. We've been doing it 27 years. Katie has been doing it for a few, but is already a gold travel counsellor. That is one of the highest performing travel professionals, travel experts in the industry, not to mention just travel counsellors. Katie does mostly leisure and books all those weird and wonderful places, but travel counsellors can become, as I said, a one-stop shop for all of your needs. It's good to hear that travel as an industry has bounced back and has been so resilient. It's great to hear, personally speaking, from a travel counsellor's perspective, that The need for trusted travel advice has never been greater. And importantly, from a business perspective, it's great to see that corporate clients are traveling again to win business. Leisure customers are on the move again to experience all that the world has to offer. And if it's flexibility you want, earning potential that you need, or whatever your motivation might be, maybe there's a home for you at Travel Counsellors. You can check us out on some of our media outlets as well. You can go and find out how to become a travel counsellor at people.travelcounsellors.com, how to book a holiday if that's what you're interested in. If you're interested in business travel, you can go there as well. And on LinkedIn, well, many of you will be here already, and it's a great way to stay connected and a great way to follow us as well. Katie may not be overly active on social media, but many of our travel counsellors are building their businesses on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. It's really interesting to see how you can provide personal, trusted travel advice, but by accessing that referrals model on steroids, as it were, in terms of the reach, engagement, and conversion that you get from social media. We believe we've got a great thing going on at Travel Counsellors. We're so excited about the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Katie, our guest, as well, and continued success to you, Katie. And for all of you listening and watching, travel is on the rise. And if you are traveling, please travel safely and enjoy it. Take care. Thank you.